All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back. Welcome to the best damn fantasy podcast for your ears. I'm your host, Randall Kennedy. I'm joined as always by the Godfather himself, Paul Lundegaard, the chef, Jake Bisong, and a very special guest today. Um, he played professional football for the New York Jets. He was an Arena League champion. He's done some work for the Fourth and Nine podcast, but obviously the highlight of his career is being on Unscripted today with us, Eric. We're really happy to have you here, man, and really appreciate you coming on with us.
Definitely, man. Like anytime I get a chance to talk football, I'm all for it.
Well, cool, man. I know you had mentioned you wanted to dig into some and talk about how the way analytics have changed the game, but I wanted to give you a chance to talk about. You got a couple of websites there, one with Rise and then one called Croc Talk, where you break down college prospects, and you have the all 22 film and stuff like that on your website. Tell us about how you got started with that.
Yeah, so I have a couple of things. I guess kind of how it all started, and I'll tell you kind of what I'm doing. But I'd say back 2016, 2017, 2016. As a 49er fan, like I would see something happen in the game, and I'd see a lot of fans complain about it, right? Like, oh, this cornerback, he did this, he did that, like, oh, he's trash. So I would like record it with my phone. I would record the play with my phone and just talk about what happened on the play, like just to kind of, hey, add context or, just my quote unquote expertise. And before you know it, that actually kind of ended up being like a trend, like of, posting clips and stuff like that. But when I first started doing it, I didn't really see anybody doing that. And I didn't think nothing of it. I didn't think it would be like the film, world of Twitter would be what it is today. I was just kind of giving my thought process on plays and the technique and stuff like that. Well, now it's kind of turned into like a huge thing, right? Like where everybody is posting, clips, posting, videos, doing breakdowns of, athletes and, football and X's and O's and all that type of stuff. So I've kind of, rode the wave of that. And, I kind of got in it early and I continue to do it. And I just try to bring a different perspective, perspective of someone that, played the game. And I try to just give like how can I explain this? Like the feel of it, like what it feels like to guard someone and what that does to me. And, does it speed up my time clock or does it throw off my technique and whatnot? Or how, my body worked for me in comparison to someone else who, might have quicker feet and better change of direction and whatnot. And I've taken that a couple of different directions. I have the Crocker Report, which is my actual website. We have a podcast. I actually have a team of guys a part of that. They do an amazing job with that. And, it's basically about, putting out as much content as possible with draft prospects, NFL guys. They write articles. We got the podcast going, Crocker Report podcast. So we have all that. And Crocker Talk, which is my Patreon account. So that's patreon.com/Crock Talk, where I break down players. That's a subscription-based platform that I use to help monetize and stuff, because I put a lot of work to breaking down film, doing these cut-ups, things like that. So it's cool to kind of monetize off of that. And then you talk about Rise, which Rise Athletics. That's my my gym that I own. I own an athletic training facility here in southeast part of Arkansas. So it's all surrounding football and training and all that type of stuff. I can't get enough of that. I'm kind of obsessed with it, and it's cool. It's cool to kind of, that's just what my life is.
Well, that's awesome, man. You mentioned you wanted to provide the experience, like how it feels to be out there on the field. How does it feel? Like, how is it different than watching it at home?
Oh man, it's like anything else, right? It's like, someone that is maybe part of the stock market and something hit, and that's what it feels like, that moment, and what that feels like. That's what it feels like being out there on the field, people watching you and whatnot. The thing that I try to dig deeper in my analysis and talk about, like when I talk about what I see, and that's a tough thing, like, you know, and when it comes to like me and how I kind of view things, and sometimes like the analytical world, the things that the way I kind of view it, sometimes it's hard to quantify with numbers. So that's the kind of struggle I have, at least with that part, and why, you know, I'm on this show today, just to hear a different perspective. Because one thing about me, I'm extremely coachable. I want to gain as much knowledge about different phases of things as possible. And if there's a way that I can improve the way that I evaluate players, I want to do that. And I know there's not one way. It's not just film. It's not just analytics. There's some middle ground where they both come in hand. And I need to get better at that. So I wanted to learn that. You know, I think the thing I struggle with is just sometimes guys like just telling me I'm wrong because, oh, you're saying you're using a term that's not, you can't quantify it with numbers, so you're wrong. And that's the part that kind of like bothers me a little bit, when it's like, wait, hold on. I like this person. I ain't have numbers to tell me I like him, you know, but I do want to get better and more efficient. And I think that the analytical aspect of things can definitely help me with that.
So, you know, I definitely agree. And I think that, you know, you're obviously on Twitter. You mentioned the sort of like the beef between film Twitter and analytic Twitter. And to me, it's sort of, they go hand in hand. You have to have one. You can't have one without the other if you want to be good at this, right? I'll reference the 2017 NFL draft when everybody had all these numbers and Mitch Trubisky was the second pick and Solomon Thomas was the third pick and Leonard Fournette was the fourth pick. And I mean, I could go on and on. John Ross was the 13th pick. I guess my point is that the way I see it is there are a lot of different numbers out there, you know, breakout age, college dominator, things like that people use to try and peg prospects. But the human element of this will always be there, in my opinion. There, like you said, there are certain things that cannot be quantified with a number. And I also think people get confused with how to prioritize certain numbers. Like one person is going to, their thing is college dominator. Another person's thing is breakout age or, you know, height, weight, you know, that kind of thing. And people get confused trying to prioritize these numbers. I'm a film guy, and I know Paul and Jake are film guys. And to me, it's there's nothing like breaking down some film. Like, I enjoy it. I read a story that said you started breaking down film when you were like a 9-year-old kid. Is that true?
Oh, okay. So I wasn't breaking down film at 9 years old, but when I was 9 years old, you know, we didn't have cable and all that. So on Sundays, I would record the games on my VHS. And, you know, back then VCRs. So I would record the games on the VHS, and then I would rewatch them throughout the week. So like my love for just kind of watching film and that part of it and being a fan of it from that perspective, it really started at a very young age. So yeah, that's kind of what that's about right here.
That's awesome. I know Paulie had mentioned that he watched film on you before, you know, ahead of the show, and wanted to get a feel for what kind of player you were. I know, Paul, you had a couple of questions you wanted to ask Eric about the kind of player he was.
Yeah, no, I did. I thought it would be fun to go back and see some of your playing and ask you about it and kind of break it down a little bit. And I had a couple of observations and then a question I was going to ask you.
All right.
So you're wearing the shirt. You were, hey.
That's why I was waving. You're probably like, what are you doing?
What's her name?
They're waving to you. Say hi.
What's her name?
Her name is Dylan, but we call her Pickle, like Dill Pickle.
Pickle?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
What's up, Dill Pickle?
Yeah. Okay, hold on. Let me get Pickle
that.
out of here. Sorry, guys.
That's okay.
That's all right.
That's
That's
okay,
all
man.
right. That's all right.
The family podcast, my man, you know?
No, we like that. We like that. So you're wearing this shirt, University of Arkansas, Monticello. You played for the San Jose Sabercats. And the one thing I noticed is that when you played arena, it made me think of a Mike Tyson quote, like everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Because your press coverage, man, like, I mean, you were brutal to these guys, like RIP their plan, because you knocked them off the block early and often. I love the physicality and in press coverage. There was one where I swear you threw the guy over the wall.
Yeah, in LA against LA Kiss.
Yep.
Oh, it's great that you know the play he's talking about. That's so awesome.
Yep. And I was like, oh, he gone.
Yeah.
And then noticing too, like a lot of PBUs, and most of the time not on your guy. You had the awareness of the play to break off of your guy and provide extra underneath support to where the play was going, and get your lengthy arms up there and knock the ball out and break up the pass. So I noticed that you were pretty disruptive when it came to that. And then the question I was going to ask you is, I noticed 2 or 3 blocked field goal recoveries. One of them you took to the house. How many blocked field goal recoveries did you have in your career?
I had in college, I had 3 or 4? 3?
I thought they were showing the same. I thought they were showing the same play. And it wasn't. It was another one. I was like, damn, he's picking up these field goal blocks like crazy. And one of them you took to the house, and there was nobody around you for like the last 20 yards, you savored it. Like you turned around and you were like, oh man, there's nobody. Like I can't even see it. You just kind of turned around and savored the moment. But anyway, I had a few minutes today and watched some of the plays, and that's what I noticed. And it was just really cool, man, to be like, yeah, man, that guy played and he's going to be on our podcast tonight. This is awesome.
Yeah, playing is actually cool. And it's crazy because I scored a few times in college. And here's a fun fact. I never scored a tackle football touchdown until I got to college.
Wow.
What?
Yeah. So, guys score all these touchdowns in Pop Warner and high school and all that. I never did.
Did you always play defense coming up?
Nah, I played both. I don't know why I couldn't find the end zone. Maybe it's just targets, or I don't know. Back then we weren't really throwing the ball around a whole lot.
Spoken like a true receiver. All I need is targets.
Man, but when I was a kid, when I was young, I was a running back. I only played 1 year at Pop Warner. We didn't have money when I was growing up. So I played 1 year at Pop Warner because it started getting kind of expensive. And I scored like a couple of 2-point conversions, but never a touchdown that year. And I was like a backup. And the guys ahead of me, they were really good. And then when I got to high school, I know I got tackled on the 1 yard line twice as a freshman. Sophomore year wasn't close. And then junior and senior year, I was ineligible half the year. So half of both years, I was ineligible academically. So I just didn't have a whole lot. It was just the way the cookie crumbled. I don't know. It's still weird because I was extremely athletic. I was good, and I was very talented. But for whatever reason, everybody else, has all these touchdowns that they scored throughout their entire life, 100 touchdowns in Pop Warner or whatever. And I just never did.
You made up for it in college.
Yeah, I made up for it in college. I scored a few times in college. I scored a couple times in the Arena League. Yeah.
So you went to Lodi in California for high school, correct?
Tokay High School in Lodi. I'm from Stockton, but where I'm from like deep north side. So where I'm from, back then we had to if we lived on one side of the street, we had to get bused to Lodi to go to Tokay High School.
You mentioned you were ineligible for half the year. Was that what led you to go to Arkansas Monticello?
No, so crazy kind of how it all happened. My freshman year of junior college, I played very well. But that was actually when I scored my first tackle touchdown. But I played very well, but then I ended up being ineligible again, kind of flunking out. Then I had a son. So I actually was out of school for 3 years. And I went back to junior college at the age of 21, going on 22. And from there, I earned scholarships. I had a bunch of scholarship offers, but my time clock was messed up from being out of school for 3 years, so I couldn't go Division I. So I had to go D2, but I had never, at the age of 22, never been out of California, never stepped foot out of Cali. So all the Division II schools and all that were offering me, they were in like North Dakota, South Dakota, Oklahoma, just places like that, Arkansas, places like that. And I was just like, man. And our UAM, University of Arkansas Monticello, had an indoor practice facility. And I was like, well, I don't know what the weather's going to be like, but at least if it gets crazy, they got an indoor practice facility. So I'm going there. So I ended up coming out here.
Well, that's awesome, man.
And you still live there?
Yeah.
So I just moved back recently to finish getting my degree. My wife entered the nursing program and everything. So because I left early to go play arena ball. And then, I played pro ball for some years. And then when I got out, I was just training a bunch of athletes and everything back in California, my hometown, Stockton. And then eventually it got to the point where I'm like, man, like I love teaching. Like I want to teach. I want to get my degree. I had some Division I schools and a couple of D2 schools offer me coaching jobs as a defensive backs coach. And I couldn't accept anything because I didn't have my degree. So I was like, you know what? Let me just go back to where I went to college. That won't help. I won't because at other places, it was almost going to put me back an entire year with my to get my degree. So I went back to where I was, picked up where I left off, and I'm just finishing up that. But in the process, I've started some things with, training athletes and everything out here, and there's a big demand for it because they just don't have it. So I'm actually building a facility out this way. So I see somebody said 209 in the house. I still, I'm all the way Stockton.
That's our guy, Tommy Moe. He's in our Undroppables crew. He's out in Cali.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, if he's from the 209, I'm from Stockton. So, but yeah, I'm out here.
Good for you, man. I think that's great that you're that you
absolutely
moved back to Arkansas and you're gonna finish up, and you're obviously a hard worker, as evidenced by the fact that you made it all the way to the NFL level, and you were so put behind by so many obstacles. So I think that's great, man, that you made it that far. And like Polly said, you were very physical cornerback.
And I wasn't always like that. I had to kind of like grow into that, like to being like that. I remember my freshman year, my rookie year in the Arena League, the guys I was playing with, they were extremely physical. And we kind of took on this persona as an extremely physical group, almost like the LOB of like Arena Football League. And I'm like, wait a minute, like I can't let these guys be really physical and we have that tag on us. But really, I wasn't like that. And then it didn't just like by the time the season started, it just clicked. And now in my first time in my life, I started really taking the physicality to guys and kind of using my size and everything like that. So that
makes sense because I didn't really
super physical.
That makes sense because I didn't see that physical press other than in that arena tape.
Yeah.
But when you got it, you caught fire with it.
Yeah, definitely.
I want to use your technique to talk about a prospect, if we could, for a minute.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Have you had a chance to break down Devonta Smith, from the wide receiver from Alabama?
Perfect person to bring up right now. Perfect.
Yep.
Yes, I have. Yes, sir.
So the reason I want to talk about him is because there are a lot of people on Twitter who say he can't beat press coverage and he's going to struggle in the NFL. But from what I see, I see defensive backs who are scared to death to get up on this kid, because when you're playing press coverage, you have to be confident enough, and correct me if I'm wrong, you have to be confident enough that if this guy gets by you, you can get back to him. And he has the wheels that there are very few defensive backs that could recover if he were to torch them. So what I see is not someone who can't beat press coverage. It's what I'm seeing is someone who has already beaten press coverage before they even snap the football.
Yeah, so I think there's kind of like this misconception with kind of guys and like beating press and whatnot. Really, the smaller guys are much harder to press than the bigger guys. Like the big guys is easy. I mean, they're right there. They're in front of you. Their movements are longer. Like it's a lot easier to get hands on those guys. And yeah, I mean, now they're bigger, so they can kind of like fight through contact and whatnot. But as far as just getting your hands on and being able to press this guy, like that's not hard unless they're like a freak like Julio Jones, who he's big, quick, fast. Like but he's a unicorn, right? But for the most part, the bigger receivers are easier to press and get hands on. The smaller receivers, even though everybody thinks like, oh, they're gonna have trouble getting off the line and all that. No, like those are the guys that are hardest to press, because a lot of times when you shoot your hand, you'll kind of stop your feet. So if I shoot my hands and stop my feet, and if a guy is elusive this way and I miss, it's over. It's over. So with guys like Devontae Smith, you almost have to use more feet before hands, a lot more feet before hands, and use your feet to kind of get in position to get hands on. Now, somebody like Devontae Smith, because he is so light in the ass, if you do get hands on, then yeah, from that standpoint, you can control him. But I'd almost say 80% of the time, you're probably not going to get too much hands on him, because he's really crafty in that way with how he works his releases and whatnot. So I think they think defeating press has to be like a strength thing. And there can be certain scenarios where that does come into place. But for the most part, those smaller, quicker, twitchier guys are much harder to get hands on at the line of scrimmage.
Awesome. So you're not fading him over BMI is what you're telling us.
No. Now, again, his play has to say that, like that I shouldn't. That's how I look at it, like, because you can look at somebody like Jamar Chase, and he's 6 foot, 200 pounds, rocked up, right? Might be like 205, like he's swole, but he struggles to beat press more than anybody I've seen. So like it's crazy how like it gets brought up with Devontae Smith where it hasn't even been an issue, but with Chase, who it's been a big issue with consistently being able to beat press. And I'd say more than 50% of the time people are able to get hands on him at the line of scrimmage. Yeah, we notice the times where he fights through it, but nobody really points out, other than me, the times where he doesn't fight through it. And there are a lot of times where he doesn't. So I think people kind of use that, like the body weight and things like that, to say what somebody can or can't do. And I think you just have to look at that player, because you can look at Odell Beckham, whose height, weight pretty much matches up with Jamar Chase, but Odell Beckham is a much more fluid, quicker, twitchier athlete. So if you just look at just pure how they're built, you can't everybody's not the same. Now you can find a smaller guy like a Devontae Smith, who's 6 foot 6'1", 170 pounds. And maybe he isn't quick or twitchy at the line of scrimmage, or maybe he isn't sudden or doesn't have releases. And then, yeah, you get hands on him and he's erased, So it kind of depends on the player. That's why, and I kind of tweeted this out earlier today, where when I go to watch a prospect, I take all of my notes just off pure film. I don't look at height, weight, speed, projected speed, any of that. I look at pure tape. And then I take my notes based on that, and I let that tell me who this player is. And then from there, eventually I'll end up, like afterwards looking at height, weight, speed, like Greg Newsome, the cornerback from Northwestern. I had never looked. I didn't know what size he was or anything like that. I didn't know his 40 time. Well, obviously we saw that today. But when I liked him, it was based on what I saw on film. I didn't know how big he was. I saw him today. He weighed in at measured in at 6 foot. 193. I'm like, great, because what I saw on film was terrific. And then you have that type of size and you're able to move like that. That
rangy corner.
Yeah, that's good. So I say all that to say, and sometimes that I've been kind of attacked by the analytical world on this. I don't go off how much somebody weighs. And I think if you go off of more how much somebody weighs, and then you use that to kind of peg them into a hole, then if they are good, they'll end up being an outlier instead of his film saying he's good at this and him just ending up being good, if that makes sense.
Well, I know you just answered right up Paulie's alley, because he wanted to pick your brain on your technique. and I've never heard anyone say that they throw out height, weight, speed, and all that stuff, and they don't know anything about a player, and they just let the tape tell them who the player is. I think that's a perfect
initially. Now,
initially.
And obviously on film, you can tell like DK Metcalf, he's 6'4", but DK Metcalf's film told me he was 4'3". I saw him beat a cornerback off the line of scrimmage, and it was a nice release, beat him off the line of scrimmage, stacked him, and he pulled away from about 5 yards. And he's looking back at the quarterback, and the corner is hauling ass, running behind him, trying to get, and he's not closing the gap. And when I saw that, I said, this dude's going to run a 4.3. And people thought I was crazy, but it was just like that told me. So when he ran it, it was just like, okay, he ran fast. I thought he would run fast. I had him, I was taking him at number 2. I thought Nick Bosa was going number 1. I was doing these little mock drafts. I was taking him at 2 before the combine because I thought he was that freakish on film. So that's just kind of, how I kind of look at it. But again, eventually, I think where analytics and film come together is the reasons why I liked him. The analytics matched up with that. In a sense, not so much the 3-cone and shuttle and all that.
Exactly.
But as far as his height, weight, speed, that maybe said that he would, could be a good player and whatnot. Now, I don't know what they said about his analytics said about his shuttle and 3-cone.
They said he couldn't run.
One of the worst. It was one of the worst, ever.
Yeah.
But I think what we need to do is not allow one miss to throw somebody out. So you don't throw DK out because he had a bad short shuttle or 3-cone drill or whatever the hell it was. Because he's a freak.
Well, this is the issue with it. Like, how does he win? And I think that's the thing that really has to be identified, right? Like, even whether it's Devontae Smith, whether it's Jamar Chase, whatever, like, whether it's DK Metcalf, how does DK Metcalf win? And if his shuttle and his 3-cone are bad, maybe that means that he has poor change of direction, which he does. And you can see that on film. But why not just don't use him don't use him on things where he has to change direction, right? He had elite speed vertically. His vertical speed should allow him to create separation on stop routes, whether it's 5, 10, 15 yards downfield. He also has the speed to run away from guys cross field, so he can run crossers, slants. What people don't really realize was, even though his change of direction wasn't very good, his quickness was good. Like, his initial feet and powerful hands at the line of scrimmage, like, that was good. So he had these like elite traits, but they kind of got overshadowed by his inability to run a good 3-cone or have good change of direction. And I think what we have to do is identify, well, how does he win? He might not win with double moves. He might not be a guy who just wins with pure routes, but he can win with speed. He can win with quickness and power. And I thought he would do that at a high level. So that's kind of why a lot of people missed on DK, because, like you said, they let one thing kind of dictate how good or bad he can be. And not just, people in the Twitter draft world, the NFL as well. They let him be the 9th receiver taken, which I thought was cool.
He fell pretty far.
He just kept falling, and it was just ridiculous. I think that we have another DK here with Devontae Smith, where BMI is just making people throw him out. And I've watched him play extensively, and the guy is just graceful out there. He's a freaking ballerina of his position, just being able to win, finding the soft spots and vertical jump, like massively over jump everybody, get the ball at the high point. Great route runner, great off the line. I don't think he'll see much press. I'm glad that you guys talked about that. I was so happy that
he'll see it. They're gonna line up in his face. It's more so of just, has he shown the ability to win first press?
Right.
And I think from that standpoint, especially in the SEC, the SEC, you see that a lot. Like, Pac-12, they play soft ass coverages. Big 12, they don't even play defense. But the SEC, they have guys that are going to line up in your face. So he has seen press, but he just has shown the ability to beat it. And people think like, well, when he gets to the NFL, like, that's just magically, it's just magically they're just going to be that much better at press. And like, it'll be a little better than college, right? But it's not going to be better to the extent that I think most people think. You know, it will be better, but not like just some magical. Now all of a sudden everybody just gets hands on him all the time.
So
You know,
Tommy asked, will he be able to beat press at the NFL level? What do you think?
yes.
I
think so, too.
have
There
a
it is.
question. I've been dying to get back to. You mentioned what you saw on film from Jamar Chase, where he struggles with press. How far down is Chase in your rankings initially, and do you think that he will struggle at the next level more than people think?
I don't want to overthink it. You know, obviously he's somebody that's, you know, has been extremely productive at LSU, had one of the most amazing seasons as a 19-year-old true sophomore. So, you know, I know you guys do the whole breakout age thing, and obviously breaking out at 19 years old, that's amazing, right? And I'm pretty sure it says he's going to be really good. But I try to always use context, right? And I'm looking at, okay, how does he win? He wins with strength. At the line of scrimmage, there were times where it almost looked like he is inviting the battle at the line of scrimmage, and people are like, "Oh, look, like he invites it, like he likes that, he feeds off it." But then I'm like, "Well, yeah, but I see him lose a lot of reps that way too," and that's the part a lot of people don't see, because they see the numbers, they see the big time numbers, they're not seeing really that. Hey, there were a lot of reps that he lost the same way he wins. And that was really weird, because you don't see a whole lot of that. You don't see a whole lot of guys win the same way they lose, right? Like Devontae Smith, however they're going to figure out how he loses, that's still going to be different than how he wins. Chase, and that was the first person I've seen where I'm like, damn, he wins with strength, but he loses with strength. And that's his like best physical trait. So I'm not as high on him. I don't know exactly where I have him yet in my rankings. I know people think I'm crazy. I've been called all kind of stuff just kind of having pushback against him. Just saying like, hold on. I don't think he's as great as everybody thinks as a prospect, but I think he does do things, some things very well. I like his skill set from the ability to build on it, but there's just some things you've probably seen the comp of Dez Bryant to him, but to me, he's more 28-year-old Dez Bryant than 21-year-old Dez Bryant, where, he struggles a little bit more with that separation, and everything has to be won at the catch point. And he's going to have to go to a team that has a quarterback who is confident in their contested throw ability as much as Joe Burrow was.
To throw into coverage.
Exactly. And that was what Dez Bryant had an issue with, going from Tony Romo, who was willing to, throw those tight window throws at Dez and be like, hey, look, I don't care if Dez Bryant, he's going to win. And then when you saw Dez go to Dak Prescott, a lot of his numbers fell out. Then the next year he just went in the NFL, right? That is something that can really help or hurt Jamar Chase if he doesn't quite go to a system and an offense that is going to give him those type of opportunities.
Interesting. I want to keep talking about wide receivers, but you mentioned a quarterback who is confident in his ability to put the ball in those tight throws, to hit that second window. And have you had a chance to look at this year's crop of quarterbacks?
I have watched them. I've watched them. Yeah, I've watched a good amount. Now I can't say like I know them like the back of my hand, but excuse me. I pretty much, any quarterback that you talk about right now, I pretty much have an opinion of who they are.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask you about a polarizing quarterback, at least from what I'm seeing, and that's Mac Jones. How do you feel about Mac Jones at the next level? And if you have them ranked, where is he?
Yeah, so in my rankings, he'll be 5th. Now here's the crazy thing about Mac Jones, because I've been saying it for a while. I think Mac Jones, when it comes to like doing quarterback things, like the things that you want to see your quarterback do, I think he probably does them better and more consistent than anybody else in this class. The issue is, I don't know how much better he's going to get. Like, he is good. You're going to have to bank on him being like like Tom Brady, where he's really like just this outlier of someone who couldn't really move, but does do all these things well, and then ends up just doing it at the highest levels. Now, Mac, he does some, I think when it comes to like pocket movement, how he works in the pocket, I think he's better than everybody in his class. But sometimes when it comes to like certain throws he'll have to make, if there's pressure and he can't get his feet under him and things like that, that's where his lack of that big arm, it could hurt him. He's more of like Kirk Cousins, Jimmy Garoppolo, like that type of player, to where you can definitely win with him if things around him are good and you work more in timing and rhythm. But I don't know if he's somebody you just want to ask to drop back and throw the ball around. And is a player like that where he's safe, right? He's a safe pick. Do you take him as high as the guys who maybe aren't quite there, but have a much more they have better traits and higher ceiling? How do you go about that? And me, if I'm picking in the top 20, I'm probably going to try to go for more of a higher ceiling guy. To draft Mac Jones, I would have to be a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers. You know, if they needed a quarterback right now, say Ben retired and Pittsburgh needs a quarterback, I would draft him, because it's like, all right, we don't have the ability to move up for one of these top talented quarterbacks, but we need somebody in here that can play. So I take him in that range. If I'm the Colts before trading for Carson Wentz, you know, he probably would fit right in and he'd do well, right? But if anybody picking in the top 10 or around there, I'm gonna try to get one of these more elite talented guys. And again, I might lose, but I feel like I can get Kyle Trask in the second half if I want somebody that's safe, that I feel like doesn't have it as big of an upside. And I like Mac Jones more than Kyle Trask, but I don't know if I like the upside of Mac Jones that much more than Trask, you know, to where I would, you know, take before I would take Jones over even a guy like Trey Lance, where it's a dice. You're rolling dice there, right? There's a big time gamble. But if it goes right, now you have somebody that really can take your offense to different heights than somebody like, and you can do way more with him than Mac Jones. But again, I like Mac Jones. I'm probably higher on him than a lot of people. I think he's really good. But when it comes to the draft and the prospects, I gotta go a little bit more with upside at that position and how I can scheme around this guy's ability than take Mac Jones like top 10.
Man, that's an excellent breakdown.
Yeah,
I love your comp to Kirk Cousins and Jimmy Garoppolo, because I think he does need a West Coast quick release offense. Mm-hmm. And I am in complete agreement what I'm hearing you say, because we all pretty much know the top 5. We just have different orders. What I'm hearing you say is that Zach Wilson and Trey Lance have more upside.
Yeah, and again,
I totally agree.
But like 100%. You said, when you're looking at Garoppolo, you're looking at Kirk Cousins. Like Washington struggled to pay him, and franchise tagged him twice in a row, because it's like, man, like, yeah, we know he can play, but you know, we don't want to just fork over, you know, $100 and whatever million guaranteed dollars or whatever. And I think that's how, when it's time for Mac Jones to get paid, he'll probably do well. But I think teams are going to struggle with that part of it, where it's like, man, do we really want to pay him? Like, you know, because it's like, he's going to need a lot of good things around him to do well. And again, he does things very well. There are a lot of people that knock him for having all these terrific receivers at Alabama. Oh, okay. He's going to a team that's likely going to have a lot of talented players. So, you know, unless it's who was I looking at? The Lions. Yeah, their receiving core is crappy. So don't go there. But you know, another team, yeah, there's gonna be teams that they're gonna put a lot of talent. Like, say if he goes to the 49ers, 49ers have George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, like Raheem Mostert, who can score anytime he touches the ball. So, you know, he go to a team like that, yeah, they'll be fine. And I think the best thing he does for the 49ers is allow the 49ers to use Jimmy Garoppolo's money and put a better team around somebody like a Mac Jones, where he'd be successful for 4 years, but after that 5th year or whatever, I'd struggle to pay him. So that's just kind of where I'm at right now, unless he turns into like he's just Tom Brady, you know.
So I compared him to Kirk Cousins. I think he's probably a little more accurate than Cousins, which is crazy because Cousins' completion percentage is around 70%. I think he's somebody you can win with in the NFL, and I don't know that there's anybody who likes him more than I like him, and that's why I asked you about him.
I like him. I like him a lot.
But
I like
I also really like Trey Lance. You brought Trey Lance up, and Trey Lance, as a 49ers fan, he reminds me of Colin Kaepernick. Like he makes those crazy off angle arm throws, and he runs around, and he's quick, and he's somebody I would love to see. Like I would love to see Trey Lance go to New England just to see what Bill Belichick could do with a quarterback like that. Because
we saw what he did with Cam Newton, and I think it'd be somewhat similar. Now, again, not saying he's Cam Newton, but I think if you talk about who Cam Newton is right now, I think him and Trey Lance are probably like not too far off from each other. It does to me look like Trey Lance is a more accurate quarterback than Cam ever was. Cam never was like the most accurate guy. I think a lot of it had to do with like his lower body mechanics and trying to use just all arm. And again, I'm not a quarterback guy, just kind of going off like conversations I've had with people and what it looked like. But I do think that Trey Lance could do well, but I would assume that they would do something with him, kind of like what they did with Cam Newton this year. And I think he'd do well with that.
Sure, but the ceiling is, like you said, so much greater. Like this stage of his career, Cam Newton, I'm not sure he's going to get another shot in the NFL, which is
yeah.
BZ, I know you like Mac Jones, but you have who is your second ranked quarterback?
Oh boy, man, I had what the hell did I do?
I thought you had Justin Fields second. I wanted to talk about Justin Fields a little bit.
I was going to say, I think I am swapping Fields and Mac Jones just after watching Fields a little bit. But I was going to ask him a little bit about Kyle Trask, too, because I had a little interest in Kyle Trask, and I just was kind of curious of his breakdown on him.
Trask, I think when it just comes to pure ball placement, he's probably the best in his class. But that's the best thing he has to offer. I think everything else he kind of lacks. His arm strength. Every time I watch, I'm like, man, every ball floats. And then I remember watching the bowl game, and he threw this deep out. Like his first throw of the game was a deep out to the right. And I'm like, damn, that took forever to get there. I'm like, man, if he does that again, like I'm pretty sure somebody's gonna pick it off. Sure enough, the very next throw, floated one to the left, got picked off and took to the crib. Right now, there's gonna be a lot of people that say, well, he was missing guys. But my thing is, I don't care who you're missing because they opted out to play in the bowl game. Like that lack of ability to, drive a throw. He can't drive anything. Everything floats, everything. And I just think like with how he plays, I'd take a chance on that in the third round, fourth round. But I just think like, before that, it's too much of a – I need to see him drive passes a little bit better. Now, I think he does have a little bit more mobility than I probably give him credit for. But again, ball placement, amazing. I think he plays well pre and post snap. I think he does that well. But just the way those balls float, and maybe that's just how he throws. That could just be how he throws.
Yep.
Maybe he does have more arm strength, but it's just what it looks like. And I'm just like, man, like 10-yard passes look like they're looping. And I just think that's I can't do that. And that was the thing. It jumped out to me when they were kicking ass.
Okay, since we're talking about Trask in Florida, I'm going to bring up another polarizing prospect in this class, and that's Kadarius Toney.
Yeah,
there's a big debate between analytics Twitter and film Twitter. What do you see when you see this kid? Because I see someone I really like. He reminds me a little bit of Percy Harvin. I don't know if you remember Percy Harvin.
I remember Percy.
But he doesn't have as diversified a route tree as Harvin. But anyway, tell me what you see, because they're not tuning in to know what I think. They want to know what you think.
So I haven't watched him as in depth as some of the other guys, but I have watched him because I've watched Kyle Pitts. I've watched guys that have gone against Florida, like the corners from South Carolina and guys like that. So I've watched him. I think it's weird because when you just watch him, it's like, he doesn't look as explosive. But then, boom, all of a sudden he does look explosive. I think sometimes with his route running, sometimes he tries to do a little too much, tries to move a little too much. And I've seen guys just be really patient with him, be like, man, I'm just going to sit here and let you do your thing. And then lock him up. He's a pure slot for the most part, right? Like he hasn't shown the ability to win on the outside. So I think when you're looking at somebody like him, he's kind of more like a Jeremy Curley, coming out of TCU.
Okay.
Where he kind of plays more of that
Jets.
type of role.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was in New York with Jeremy Curley, but
he played for the 49ers too. Jeremy Curley did.
Yeah. Yep. And he actually led the team in receiving. It was like 600 yards or something like that, but he led them in receiving. I like him. I don't love him. I just don't see like the big time traits. Now, if I was a team and I want to take him, day two for sure. I wouldn't mind taking him at all. And my guy Brad Kelly, he said, he was showing and he was like, my comp for him is like a combination between he said Tavon Austin and Deebo Samuel. And I'm like, man, Tavon Austin and Deebo Samuel, like, what does that look like? And I'm like, hell no, like what? Like, and then I watched some clips. I'm like, damn, that is kind of like Tavon Austin and Deebo Samuel kind of combined. So he's kind of that type of person where he looks a little smaller, but I don't think he's that small. He plays really physical. He plays strong. Definitely shows some good run after catch. Shows some toughness. I mean, he was a baller this year for Florida. There's just something about him where I'm like, he feels like a pure slot, more gadget guy. Definitely would take him day two and wouldn't be mad at that.
You mentioned pretty much my favorite player in this whole class. I want to get your take on Kyle Pitts, Eric. I just finished our rookie draft guide write-up on him today.
There's a lot to like about him, man. Very fluid guy. You want to identify how a guy wins. And I think him, man, just like his ability to attack the ball at his highest point. And when you're 6'6", I use this term like play big. Like, does this guy play big? And I've had some people kind of attack me for saying like, well, you got to be small to play big. And it's like, no, like you can be big and play big. And you can be big and play small. I think he's like George Kittle. He plays big like after the catch, but at his highest point, George Kittle doesn't play big from that standpoint. When you look at Kyle Pitts, man, above the rim guy, but even more so than that, he's a very fluid mover. I think he has really good hips. I watch him snap down where his forehead down near touches his knee. So I'm like, man, like he's somebody that has nice, good bend. He has good routes. He knows how to set things up. And he has a good run after catch. He really reminds me of like Jordan Reed. But if Jordan Reed was 4 inches taller, So that's kind of, I know he'll get like the Darren Waller and stuff
Darren
like
Waller.
that. But, he reminds me of like that type of guy. I don't know if he's quite as fast as Darren Waller. Darren Waller can really move, but he's definitely that type of receiver. I like him a lot. And he's a much better run blocker than people give him credit for. I think because he's so good at receiving, people knock him. And I've heard somebody say, well, no, in 2019, he wasn't good. I don't know. I didn't watch as much of him in 2019, but I know 2020, I thought he blocked well, especially when it's right there in front of him. Now, sometimes, moving and stuff like that, you see him kind of whiff here and there. But for the most part, I thought he was a solid run blocker to where, there are a lot of people like, oh, he's a receiver. He's a receiver. Like, no, he's a tight end. Use him as such so you can, use that as your advantage in personnel. And I think he can run block. I think he's going to be fine with that. And I think he's going to get better as he improves his strength, as he, gets in that NFL weight room. He's going to improve his strength. Where now, I'm in the NFL. I don't got to worry about going to class or anything like that. Like, he's going to be able to just focus in on, I'm going to get stronger. I'm going to become a better athlete. And I think he's going to be really good from that standpoint in the one area where he's not as great and that's run blocking. I think he'll be fine with that.
Where would you rank him just based off his talent right now? amongst tight ends in the NFL?
Oh,
That's the big question, because I've seen him up there right at number 3. I've seen him at number 4. Number 5.
I can't do 3 because I mean when you start talking about 3, that's kind of a little crazy because you got Kelsey, Kittle, Waller, and it's like no, I can't put him over any of those guys off top. Like that's I can't do that. And I have too much respect for what those guys have done. But after that, you start. Oh, man, I'm trying to think of. I mean, what Andrews?
So yeah, I would say so. You got Andrews, Hawkinson, Fant. I'm sure Goddard is up there.
Yeah, see those guys. I mean, and they've been productive. They're really good. I mean, even guys like Ertz, who maybe he's not as great as you. I mean, but yeah, guys that have been. It is really hard for me to compare a collegiate guy to the NFL. I mean, we can compare him as a prospect, and yeah, he's the highest prospect out of any of those guys coming out. So if you look at it from that standpoint, his ceiling is probably higher. But just based on what those guys are and what they've done and the productions the production they put up, I just it's hard for me to compare them to NFL guys from that standpoint.
See, I love that answer. It's a great answer because it's all the time we're seeing rankings coming out with rookies slotted into spots when they're not even on a team yet. And
but fantasy, y'all kind of got to do that, right? Because I mean, you guys
sometimes
have drafts and stuff. And
we do, but I mean, it's also it's a very slippery slope, and it's just. For me personally, I won't even touch, ranking rookies until that draft hits. Not just me personally, but I love what you said. It was spot on. I love it.
Well, I'll rank them against each other, but not against NFL prospects.
Exactly.
Right.
Eric,
I look at guys as prospect. Like I can go back and say, hey, like Kyle Pitts is a better prospect than Travis Kelce. Hell, I don't even know where the hell Travis Kelce came from. Like, I don't even know what college he went to.
Cincinnati. He played for Cincinnati.
Was it Cincinnati? Okay.
Yeah. Ask me how I know that.
How do you know that?
I know that because Cincinnati played in the Belk Bowl against Duke his senior year. And Duke was driving for the game icing score with less than a minute to play and fumbled inside the 5-yard line. And it got picked up and returned for a touchdown. And then they fumbled the kickoff on the very next play.
Oh, wow.
And the Bearcats threw it to Kelsey, who took it like 80 yards to the house.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I've had a disdain for Travis Kelce ever since.
The only tight end I know from Cincinnati is, what's the kid's name that 49ers signed him undrafted free agent like 3-4 years ago. Can't think of his name right now. But yeah, man, I just better prospect than any of those guys. Yes, probably the best prospect since Vernon Davis, and maybe even higher than that. Like, yes, so from a prospect perspective, definitely have him higher than those other guys coming out. But
he's got to do it.
He's got to do it, and they've done so much, and they've been so productive, and even that transition for tight ends typically isn't just some super smooth transition, heading to the NFL.
So analytics Twitter is kind of freaking out, or they were. I don't know that they still are, but about how old Najee Harris is. Is he that dude, or is Alabama's line that good?
Najee is tight, man. I mean, I've been watching him. I'm from Stockton, California, so Najee, he played against Lincoln High from Stockton. I watched him like on the 7-on-7 circuit, play receiver. Now, dude's a freak. I think when you watch him, his breakout, and if you kind of look at breakout age or, just his age in general and whatnot, I think a lot of that had to do more with the fact that, he had Jacobs and Harris, Damian Harris, and all these other running backs that are coming through Alabama, and he kind of just had to wait his turn. He's shown the ability to do those things, but he just never had the opportunity to really carry the load. And finally, now they're like, you know what? Carry the load for us. And I mean, what?
Smart analytics guys call that a teammate score, where you don't have that in some of the smaller schools. Jamar Jefferson doesn't have a teammate score, but you miss on guys like Jacobs, Antonio Gibson. This year, you've got Michael Carter and Javonte Williams. You have to give them a teammate score. And like you said, there's a late breakout age because Alabama and Georgia are football and running back factories. Right. So it's hard to get that playing time, and that's why a lot of them stay to be seniors, because they're promised when they get to be a senior that they're the man.
Right.
Analytics says, well, he had a late breakout age. There's a lot of context that needs to be put into that.
Absolutely.
Right. Like, look at Swift.
Glad you brought that up.
Yeah, like Swift, he was behind Sony Michel and
Nick Chubb.
Nick Chubb.
That's
Like,
Beezy's boy right
like,
there. That's Beezy's boy right there.
Yeah, like, and then Sony Michel and Nick Chubb were like behind Todd Gurley. So like, when you're out of school like that, it's tough, and you just really have to wait your turn. Now again,
and Todd Gurley was behind Keith Marshall, who was a beast until he tore both his ACLs.
Yeah, speedster. So even with Najee Harris having to wait, he still is old. I mean, I don't even think he got to finish his senior year of high school because he turned like 19. So he's gonna be old regardless of if he waited to leave, Alabama. But just what the eye test says is like he could have been playing well like he did this year if he had just gotten that opportunity. So I like his game. He has those shades of Le'Veon Bell with his pass catching ability. I think that he's going to be a 3-down back in the NFL. He's a really patient runner. I think he does a really good job to make guys miss. And then we've seen him in the open field, throw guys off him, jump over guys, and keep running for touchdowns and do all these freaky stuff. It's like, I don't care about his age. I think he's terrific. Now, I care about his age from a standpoint of running backs already kind of have a short shelf life. So you might only get 4 good years out of them, but you know what I'm saying? So that's something that, teams drafting them might have to take into consideration.
I like to say scout the player, not the depth chart.
Yeah.
Just because he sat behind somebody doesn't mean he's not good.
Yep.
Perfect example. LSU with Terrace Marshall coming out this year. A guy who had played on the same team with Jefferson and Jamar Chase, and everybody put up numbers, and I think Marshall put up terrific numbers as well, catching 13 passes as the third receiver. But then it's like, well, he kind of just had to wait his turn, and boom, he gets his chance. In 7 games, he kind of goes crazy. He has over like 700 yards, has like 13 touchdowns or whatever he had in 7 games, 10 touchdowns in those games. And he said, you know what, that's enough. I don't need to play no more. I don't even know who these quarterbacks are that's throwing to me. Let me walk away. So that's a guy like that, where it's the depth chart maybe hindered him, where if he were somewhere else, he probably could have been, the guy. And I think he has that type of ability as well. He's really good. I like him a lot, actually.
Where do you have him in your? I know you said you really don't have a rankings, but
not yet for receivers.
Is he in your? Is he going to make your top 5? Is he in your
he
top?
Can. Like, he's a candidate to make my top 5 for sure. Because I like his ability to be able to play outside, be able to play inside. I think he has nice, good bend and flexibility, as a route runner. You look at him and, his ability to win in all phases. He really reminds me a lot of MVS, Valdez-Scantling from the
Marquez
Packers.
Valdez-Scantling.
Yep.
Yeah, like that's who he. It's like a shade of him mixed with Mohamed Sanu. Like, that's just his kind of ability to change pace and be able to bend and nice, good feet and things like that. I think he's going to just continue to get better. So, his ability to, the contested catches. Now, MVS, I know that's not the sexy thing to say, but if you just look at MVS from an ability standpoint, he has big time ability. His ability to, catch downfield passes and line up in different places. He has nice, good speed and all that. He wins. He just got to catch the damn ball. So, he kind of gets his own head. But from just like a profile standpoint, I think he's kind of shades of MVS and Mohamed Sanu.
I like it.
Have you had? What are your feelings on? I know we kind of talked about slight. What did you say? Light in the ass receivers. How do you feel about the two Moore guys, Rondale Moore and Elijah Moore?
Yeah, well, Rondale Moore is definitely he's built. I haven't watched those guys on film. I've seen them a little bit, but not enough to like have as good of a player comp and breakdown. I know when I glanced at Rondale Moore, he played a lot in the slot, and sometimes it's kind of hard to judge guys in the slot because they have a lot of favorable matchups. They're going up against more safeties and linebackers, more free releases, being able to run through zones, and when you're somebody like him that has that speed and stuff, he definitely took advantage of it. Can he just beat man? I don't know. I haven't dove in enough to really grasp that aspect of it. But I think from an ability standpoint, I like a lot of what he brings. I think he's tough after catch. I think he, run after catch is all good and all that. But I got to know, like, can you beat man? And can you do it consistently? How's his releases? All those things. Those things I can't answer that question right now.
I don't think any of us can. I think he played 90, like a college NCAA high, 94, 91% of his plays from the slot in his big freshman year. Huge early breakout there his freshman year, and then had a couple hamstrings, I believe. But 42-inch vertical, squats 600 pounds, had a sub 4-second short shuttle, which is insane. He's just a pit bull. I'm really excited to see what he could do. But, it's funny. You say, oh, I haven't really seen that much. And then you just go on to nail it. So quit sandbagging us.
Oh, yeah. Well, when I say enough, because I haven't just sat and watched like
I know
4 films and taken my notes. So, but
I'm joking,
but
you really nailed the one thing that we need to know.
Yeah.
Can he beat and play outside if need be?
Yeah,
we don't know that. So I'm kind of joking because you said that, but you really kind of honed in on the one thing we don't know about Rondell Moore. Yeah. And I know that that term really likes the other Moore, Elijah, as well.
That's another one I haven't watched as much. I mean, I've watched some games. Who did I watch? I watched them against Alabama for sure.
That's the one. That's the good one to watch him against. You want to see if he can play with the big boys.
But I wasn't watching him. I was watching Patrick Surtain. So I mean, I noticed him making plays. I noticed Moore making plays. There was another game too. I just he kept making plays. Man, who?
Surtain is a bad boy.
Yeah, he is.
Was it South Carolina?
When I watch Moore, what sticks out to me is his footwork. Like, man, he's got guys on skates.
Yeah, now he has really good bend. Someone posted some of his practice clips on Twitter, and those are good because now like Moore too is somebody. Oh, I watched Moore against Florida, but I was watching Marco Wilson, and they were lining up Moore in the backfield, like at running back, and motioning him here, and all these different little movements, and they had to have like Marco sometimes lining up in like a linebacker spot because he was manned up on Moore. So I do know they were moving him around. I've definitely been watching film where he was playing very well, but I haven't just watched him specifically. I'm more so watching the guys playing defense.
Who's your favorite DB in this class?
Oh man, I love me some JC Horn.
I really like Horn.
Yeah, I love Horn. Now I just watched Greg Newsome last night, and I got all my notes and everything done on him. And he's, to me, if I had to guess, I'd say he's my second favorite in this class right now. But when it comes to JC Horn, he has a lot of those things where I talked about things you can't really quantify with numbers.
Right.
Just one, talking to one of my old teammates that was with the Jets. He was a running back with the Jets. He was a strength and conditioning coach for South Carolina the last few years. Now he's with the Rams. Now he just went to the Rams this offseason. But with South Carolina, he would message me and tell me about these guys, told me about Debo, told me about Kinlaw. Now he was telling me about JC Horn, and he told me about him before the season's like, Crop, I want to, I know you be out there on this stuff. Let me get this name out there for you ahead of time. He was like, JC Horn. He said he's an alpha dog. You're gonna love him. He was the leader from the moment he stepped in the locker room. He was the leader of that secondary. He was like he great work ethic, terrific, all that, right? And I'm like, damn, okay. He was like, yeah, Joe Horn's son. I'm like, wow, Joe Horn, okay, I remember him. And then you watch him play, and everything that he said about him as just the person, the player that he is, you see that on the field. Just that dog, that tenacity, that ability to or mindset to just take on these challenges that some people shy away from. But him, it was like, what? You want me to guard Kyle Pitts? All right, put me on Kyle Pitts. What? You want me to guard what's his name? Seth Williams from Auburn. Okay, put me on him. I'm on him all game long, you know, and just okay. Oh, he got me on the deep ball, like 40 yards, whatever. I'm still coming at and just made life hell for Seth Williams for the rest of the game. You know, just somebody with that type of mindset is kind of hard to. That's big time because he's working his butt off. He's working right now. He's not somebody who he gets paid and now all of a sudden he's gonna like lay off. Like nah, like dude is hungry and he's a grinder. He's all about his football. And then when you watch him, it really shows up. Technique not the best, right? When you look at somebody like Patrick Surtain's technique is better. But when you just talk about his movement skills, his feet, his scrappiness, that dog in him, that shoving guys after plays, like all those little things that I really like when it comes to DBs, taking on other guys' number ones. He's my favorite. Like, yeah.
We're in your wheelhouse right now because you played cornerback.
Yeah. Well, and the 49ers need a corner, and that's Caleb Fairley. How do you feel about Caleb Fairley? Because he seems like a scheme fit guy for the 49ers. To me, have you gotten a chance to watch him?
Yeah, I've watched
Virginia Tech.
Yeah. So when it comes to Fairley, he's a little raw. And I hate using that word. You know what I'm saying? I hate using that word raw. But raw in the sense of I don't want to say he's raw like, he just hasn't been playing, but he hasn't played a lot. But he's raw from a sense of just everything is just a little off. Now, the one way he wins is he's a physical freak. Like when the ball's in the air and you see how he's able to close on that and that athleticism starts jumping out and stuff like that, his ability to click and close on receivers, like those things really jump out to me where I'm like, big time ability. But when you just really watch him, a lot of his play is kind of hit and miss. He'll be really good at the line of scrimmage, then he'll be like, and when I say line of scrimmage, he'll be really good in press, and then he'll just run 3 yards upfield when the dude stopped and he's just lost. Or he'll do random things like random speed turns in the middle of routes. He'll display bad eyes and give up a touchdown like he did to Miami. And then, not set the edge as a force player and let the guy bounce outside and run into the end zone. Like he does all these little things that will worry me a little bit, but most coaches, they're not going to look into that too much. They'll probably say, you know what? I get paid to coach. Let me coach this dude up. And he has all the physical traits that I want in a defensive back. So I think sometimes his feet, he gets a little stuck in the ground at times. I think he is somebody that has to play with really good anticipation, but his ability to really like close in sometimes, even when he's wrong, I think that makes up for sometimes his lack of technique and stuff when it slips up here and there. But he has big time ability for sure. I like his feet for the most part in the sense of being able to put his foot in the ground and close on receivers. I just think sometimes if he's not guessing right, you'll see him kind of do some weird stuff at times. So it worries me a little bit, but not a whole lot because the physical upside that he has.
Is he a first rounder?
Yeah. He's a first rounder. Okay. Too much ability, just too freaky. Really good ball skills, all that. So yeah, he's definitely, and then showing the ability to, play off for somebody his size. That's very intriguing. Definitely has to get a little bit better at press, but I just don't think that Virginia Tech pressed a whole lot.
Couple guys I wanted to ask you about, Eric. Dan, who is Al Sabermetrics from the Undroppables, wants to ask you about Asante Samuel Jr., and I wanted to ask you about Kelvin Joseph from Kentucky.
All right, so I've watched both guys extensively. And for anybody obviously like Patreon, there's a paywall. But if you guys are interested in a lot of these breakdowns and full videos of it, subscribe to my it's patreon.com/croctalk, and you'll see in-depth breakdowns on all these guys.
Absolutely. Awesome.
But when it comes to Asante Samuel Jr., really like him. I thought, there were things that kind of jumped out his 2019 where I'm like, that is out a little too much. Not very big. Oh, man, they're inside the 10-yard line. They're taking him out of the game. So I was like, do they not trust him on the goal line? He's playing in the slot, but he's not really challenging guys, and he's kind of letting Amari Rodgers kind of have his way. He's not giving up the plays because I watch guys even when they're not being targeted, So, but 2020, it looked a lot better. I thought he challenged himself from a movement skill standpoint, being able to play off and kind of just be able to play honest. Like that was something where Farley might have struggled with something like that, being able to play off and play things honest, but be able to react with your feet and close. I thought for somebody that isn't, the biggest of guys, I thought he did a really good job of contesting passes at the catch point in the end zone, even against bigger guys. I thought he did that well. I thought he was maybe the best tackling corner in his class. And, for him to not be the biggest guy, I thought he was the best and most willing tackler to, defeat a block and go and hit somebody, even if it was a moment where he didn't really have to. Just looking at that kind of mindset, that was something that jumped out to me a few times.
That'll get a run.
Yeah. So, he's going to have that, teams are going to be like, well, is he a slot? Is he an outside guy? Definitely think he has the ability to play outside. Definitely, obviously, I think day one would be a legit slot in the NFL. There's a lot, to like about him. And then when it comes to Kelvin Joseph, he's somebody that has all the ability when it comes, to just his movement skills. I think his movements are really good for somebody of his size. He has good feet. He has all that. But his inconsistencies are, again, when you're playing corner, it's not always going to be perfect. And I understand that. But he has, his eyes are terrible. Technique lacks. Again, he shows all the ability to do these things, and play well. I thought when he played against Alabama, it looked really good. Everything looked so good against Bama, but that was an outlier of a game. Every other game, and again, it might not show up in stats in the sense of him being targeted and all that, but when you just watch him, I'm like, oh, beat here, bad eyes. Oh, zone coverage, not reading 2-1. Late here, giving up this up the seam. Bad eyes here, not driving this man out of his break. All these little things where a coach might say day two, hey, I like him and I can fix these. I can fix this. But to me, there's just so much that you have to kind of fix that it makes it a little tough for me to be really high on him. But from an ability standpoint, I like him. I like what he has and what he can bring to the table. What I didn't care for so much was just I don't want to use the word rawness, because he plays corner. He's been playing corner for years. He was at LSU, transferred to Kentucky, but just there was so much that I feel like he needs fixing. Has the ability, has the feet. He's not somebody where I look at him and I'm like, bad feet, poor change of direction, stiffness, can't anticipate. I don't say any of those things. I think he can do all those things. He just doesn't do it outside of the Alabama game, which is a good testament, because to me, when you do it against Bama, that's really good. Outside that game, though, it was just far too inconsistent for me. Talked about, matter of fact, I watched him against Ole Miss. He gave up a key third down because it just, terrible eyes. You're playing here, you're outside, and you're not even watching the guy running up the seam. I think it was Moore that just went right up the slot. Just things like that where his eyes just gave up a touchdown, poor eyes. It was just consistently bad film for me. But show some good things.
Nice.
Cool, man.
He just fell off my IDP rankings. All right.
But again, he can get to the league and get in the right system and get with the right coach. And they take his ability and they coach him up, and he could be a starter for 10 years.
I'm particularly, kind of think what pops to me is that I like taller cornerbacks, and he's 6'2", and he's got the speed too. A lot of the guys in the top 5 are 4.53, 4.55 guys, and he's 4.47. So he's got the size and the speed. And I think I just got burned because I watched the Alabama. I'm like you. I want to see how he plays against the top competition.
Right.
So he showed up in that game. So I think that's what kind of put him on my map. I need to go back and watch him in some of these other games and see what you were saying.
Yeah.
And see what you were seeing.
So I'm
Florida, really glad. I'm really glad I asked him about you.
Against Florida, he had Kyle Pitts running right at him. He took a false step, which threw everything off. And again, these are things that are coachable. Right. But it was Kyle Pitts he ran at him, did he go corner, post, caught it, ran it, and then outran Joseph for a touchdown. Things like that. It's hey, well, don't take that false step, and that won't mess up your depth, and you can kind of stay in your back pedal, stay a little higher to where you don't have to bite so much on the first move, and it doesn't change your angle. So, just things like that are fixable, but it was just like a lot of things like that just kept jumping out over and over in different games, stuff like that.
The conversation tonight definitely went a little slightly different direction than I thought it would. But that's why we call this unscripted, Eric. And we did touch on analytics versus film, but not quite as much as I wanted to. I'd love for you to come back and we could continue this discussion again sometime. I got to pay some bills here for just a moment. Monkey Knife Fight, use the code UND, sign up, play, fight, win. I think they'll match you up to $50. If you like the hats that Paulie and I are wearing, he's wearing an Undroppables hat. I have our friends at Dynasty Rewind. They're both made by Viridian Global. They're quality stuff. Check them out. You can find their link on our website, theundroppables.com. And Eric, your website, pantheon.com/Croc Talk.
Patreon.
Patreon.
So there's patreon.com that, that's the Patreon platform. And then, patreon.com/Croc Talk. And, obviously that's a subscription based, but I'm telling you guys, like, it is good stuff though. And I'm throwing in podcasts on there. So it's not like you're just paying to read something like, say, like The Athletic.
Hey, I'm sold. Like, I'm sold.
You pay, you
Right.
watch video analysis, breakdowns, all this stuff, specific examples on everything that I talk about, and I show like the consistency and stuff. I actually throw in technique videos where I'll talk about like a specific technique on how something happened and whatnot. I have a little podcast where I just give takes real quick on things like Dak Prescott, Cowboys paying him a bunch of money. Like, what's that going to mean? So I throw in the podcast on there. And then as the season goes on, especially in the NFL, I'll do key matchups of the week and things like that. So there's going to be a lot of good stuff. People pay for it. So I'm giving them people what they don't know they need, but they find out like, I need this stuff.
What
so
they
it's
want.
good.
Hell yeah.
Give the people what they want. Patreon.
And your Twitter is Crocky at Eric_Crocker, right?
Yes, sir. Okay. At Eric_Crocker.
Okay. I'd love a follow back there, sir.
Oh, yeah.
Yo, hey, I'll take one too, man. Why not?
Man, I got to tell you, we've got
sleeper,
some
boom.
more former players lined up for this offseason. You are our first, and it was absolutely fantastic. It blew my expectations out of the water. It was so great having you.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for coming on,
this
man.
Has been my favorite episode to date. Well, I mean, hands down. I could talk to you for another 2 hours, I think.
Oh, yeah.
I know. I told you I love talking football, so,
You've got to come back. Tell us you'll come back.
Oh, man. Hey, y'all just know I'm down.
Awesome.
Right, man.
Awesome.
Sweet.
Thank you so much, guys. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Eric, again, thank you so much. And remember that the best fantasy discussions are always
Unscripted.